Many thanks for joining us here on Newsdesk. My name is Ernest Mino. Let's settle for the details now. Former President John Dramani Mahama has called on government to refrain from what he describes as political or parochial considerations in the fight against the novel coronavirus. This follows concerns over discrepancies in the data surrounding the COVID-19 tests conducted under the aggressive testing during the 3-week lockdown. In a televised address Thursday evening, Mr. Mahama expressed worry over inadequate PPEs and government's mitigation policies.
Not a day passes without emails, phone calls, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp messages from nurses and other medical staff from facilities across the country reaching out to my office and pleading for protective gear, PPEs. Right from the start of this pandemic, public education and awareness has been poor. Government should speed up the initiative of manufacturing locally made masks, which can be washed and pressed or ironed and reused again. These should be handed out free of charge to the public. Strong public education on the safe use of masks must accompany this initiative. One gets the sense that perhaps because of the current low mortality in the cases we have confirmed so far, the president might be seeking to rely on what is called herd immunity as a strategy to fight COVID-19. But I dare say this is dangerous. We must remember that there are reports of reinfection occurring in some cases elsewhere, and also prolonged immunity to the virus has not yet been proven at this stage. It is important to note that government's humanitarian intervention to alleviate the unintended but predictable consequences of the lockdown have been an abysmal failure. The distribution of food was chaotic and disorderly, and in some cases partisan. It flouted all protocols of social distancing and prevention of the spread of the virus. Definitely no careful planning went into the implementation of this initiative, as is characteristic of this current administration. My suggestion to involve assembly members and traditional rulers, religious leaders, and civil society organizations were ignored. As the president clearly admitted, this was one of the reasons for the lifting of the lockdown. Many Ghanaians were faced with two choices: either to stay at home and die of hunger, or come out and take their chance against the deadly virus. Faced with these two choices, most Ghanaians opted for the latter. I therefore can understand and I empathize with the sports of jubilation that greeted the announcement of the president of the lifting of the partial lockdown. With a budget in excess of 1.2 billion cedis from the Stabilization Fund, I believe we could have handled this mitigation effort much better than we did.
Also, the former president suggested that the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, the SNIT, should support contributors within this period.
My office has been flooded with correspondence from many working class people, especially in the private sector, who have not received their February and March salaries and are having a difficult time feeding and taking care of their families. The lockdown may have been lifted, but many businesses are still down and suffering. Employees are suffering too, just as the many players in the informal sector are also suffering. It makes me wonder why our Social Security and National Insurance Trust has not been responsive in this time of need of many of its contributors. Social Security contributions are essentially an insurance scheme made not just for pensions in old age before we die, they are also meant to help contributors in times of adversity such as this. Remember that not all will come out and queue for food. Not all will come out of their homes to receive the food boxes that we go around and hand over. But as has been done in other countries like St. Lucia, I think a token payment of all contributors of a certain token sum over 3 months would have afforded many the assurance of feeding their families during these abnormal times. While we wait for a clearing understanding of the factors underpinning the decision of the president to relax efforts to manage the spread of the virus, I urge all Ghanaians to continue to be responsible and not to assume that the country is out of the woods yet because of the removal of the lockdown.
So that's an interesting suggestion coming from the former president. Let's explore this further and speak to a labor consultant, Austin Game. He joins us on the phone. Mr. Game, thank you very much for your time here on NewsDesk. Now, how feasible is the suggestion by the former president for SNIT to support contributors around this time?
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Honestly, I'm a little troubled because more than 3 weeks ago, I had made this suggestion to some people in the TUC or organized labor, and people, notable people who are even sitting on the board of SNIT, that this is time they should do what the former president is suggesting now. I haven't seen him for close to 4 years now, so I'm not surprised. He also suggested it. It's a wise thing to do at this particular point in time. And SNIT, if they are not, if even they are suffering guilty point of view now, they are a colossal body. They know what to do to support not vulnerable but legitimate contributors to SNIT who are normally workers like yourself, myself, if you are not on retirement. So that is just about it, and I think it's a wise call, and people should not take it from the traditional partisan political point of view. Let's look at it really and see how we can they can be of help to people.
So you said this is a wise decision, but I don't know what the law makes of this. Hold the line for me, sir. Fortunately, we've been joined by the head of corporate affairs for SNIT, Ifwa Sarkodie. Madam, thank you very much for your time here on NewsDesk. You have heard the former president make the call. The labor expert who is also on the other line with us says this is a wise call. What is your reaction, SNIT?
Well, thank you for having me, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Yes, indeed, we have taken notice of the former president's call. But the short answer to that is, I'm sure, as you know, this is a creature of law. We are governed by an act of parliament, and if I may, it's the National Pension Act 208, Act 766. All our operations, our mandate, our reach, what we can and what we cannot do, is clearly spelled out in this law. And for all these years, SNIT has operated based on this law. And with your permission, I'd like to refer to Section 34, 70, and some other sections, that maybe specifically 34. We are enjoined by law to pay 4 benefits, and the law is specific, 4 benefits: old age pension, invalid pension, old age lump sum benefits, and survivors lump sum benefits. These are the benefits that the law clearly states out that SNIT should pay us. And we have been true to these benefits. We have been committed to paying these benefits even during these times. As far as the former president's suggestion goes, we are simply unable to do so, not because of anything, but because of the law, which sets us SNIT. We cannot be seen as acting contrary to what the law mandates us to do. That would constitute a breach. And so until the law changes or is tweaked or is reformatted, for lack of a better description, we can only pay benefits as prescribed by law.
Madam Sarkodie, yes, we have to work with the law, but over the years, I know that SSNIT has been engaged in the provision of social services. For instance, you've built hospitals. The law also allows you to invest. Are you saying there's no space, there's no provision whatsoever SSNIT can sort of capitalize on to provide some sort of relief for contributors around this time?
So as I have just said, the law is clear on the benefits that we can take. Just as it is clear on the contributions that we can collect. SSNIT or the managers of SSNIT do not act on their own. Even the payment, the percentage payments, I'm sure as you know, have been clearly spelled out by law. And so as our law stands now, there isn't anywhere in the law that says we should provide unemployment benefits or we should provide benefits that result from losses of a pandemic or a disaster. I do know, and I'm sure you also do know, that in other jurisdictions this happens. And this happens because it is in their law and they follow the law to make these payments. If we are asking, as a collective, for a change or some sort of modification in the law to allow SSNIT to do this, then that's a conversation we can have. But as the law stands now, we are unable to pay because the law is clear on what benefits we can pay. We cannot add and we cannot deduct from what the law says we should do. I must say that even in these times, anybody who qualifies for any of these benefits, SSNIT is committed to fulfilling these obligations. And so if there's a member or there's a contributor who qualifies for any of these benefits, they can please walk into any of our offices and apply for these benefits, and we would pay. As I speak to you now, we continue to pay pensions. There are over 210,000 patients who are on our pension. We are paying them all the obligations set up on us by law. We are fulfilling. And so if there is any contributor out there who qualifies for any of these benefits, as I've just explained, we will strongly encourage them to walk into any SSNIT office and apply for these benefits, and then they will be paid once we meet the qualifying conditions.
Very well. So you talk about the law. What law gives SSNIT the authority or the space, as it were, to contribute to the COVID-19 Trust Fund? I know you were at the Information Ministry perhaps this week or last week. I saw you on television making some donation to the COVID-19 Trust Fund. How does the law provide for this?
So if you read the act tells us, or not tells us, the act makes provision that we can charge things to our administrative expenses. That is in line with international social security practices and also the ISSA convention. And making a donation to the COVID-19 fund, as you're aware, we are a workers' fund. And if we do not have workers, SSNIT has no fund. And so our job, or at this point, our support is to the general fight against the pandemic, so that our pensioners and our workers can remain strong, that they can go about their duties, and that our pensioners will not be unduly affected. And even if they are, that means that we can support the government's effort to fight this pandemic. And so it was in that sense that we made that contribution. But my understanding of what the former president was saying was that we should make individual benefit payments or individual contributor payments to contributors during this time. And I'm saying that goes into benefit payments. And the benefit payments have been clearly laid down by law as benefit payments and what we can pay. And so that is what we are paying as we speak. And we have not stopped paying that because of COVID-19.
Madam Sarkodie, hold the line for me briefly. We have Austin Gambe with us still on the line. He's a labor expert. And Mr. Gambe, I don't know what you make of SSNIT's reaction to the suggestion by the former president, which you consider as a wise one. The law does not allow them, simply put, to do what the former president is asking.
Well, I I'm not prone to engaging people like this on air, but I want to just say this. I form part of the team that wrote the pension scheme, and we amended it about new things in it. I was one of the team.
Mr. Gambe, we lost you briefly on the line. You were saying that you're part of the team that wrote the pension scheme, the law.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. And you were saying that you amended certain portions. If you could just take it from there for us.
I was saying that I formed part of the team that wrote the pension scheme.
Okay.
And during the course of writing the pension scheme, we proposed, changes in the SNIT law, give room for the setting up of the second tier. Now we have SNIT contribution, we have first tier, we have second tier, we have third tier. So these are changes that can always be made. Even our constitution, we can amend it. This is a very complex situation we find ourselves in. I do not think the former president, and certainly that is not the proposal I made to certain people on even the SNIT board and organized labor. Nobody is asking for SNIT perpetuity. This is a tense moment for people who are contributors to SNIT, who will not be paid at the end of this month, who will not be paid maybe next month. They are not too sure when their business will be in full flow. So I think the suggestion is about now having a conversation about what to do, and if it's agreed overall by people in respect of this matter that have been raised, law can be amended. Our president recently went to Parliament and have a bill sent to Parliament. It was passed into law. He has now authority to commandeer us to respect certain things to save people's lives. Anything can be done at any point in time. If SNIT law will be amended to enable them, give support to the contributors, and let's say, God forbid, if 3,000 people of the contributors may fall dead as a result of the COVID-19, and they can save them, to prevent certain things being done, it's the best thing that SNIT can do, and credit will be given to the institution. So all I want to say is that it's a call in the right direction. I have proposed it more than 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen the former president for 4 years or so now.
Very well.
So it's not something that people should be talking about the legalistic aspect of it overly. Let's have a conversation about it.
Mr. Gambe, just hold on briefly for me. Madam Sarkodie, is SNIT open to such a suggestion? Are you looking to amend the law or to have some form of relief for your contributors going forward? We don't know how long this pandemic will last, but have you started conversations around this already, beyond the lump sum you gave to the COVID fund? Hello, Madam Sarkodie. Hello? Hello, Madam Sarkodie, are you still with us?
Yes, I am here. And I think your panelist, his closing remarks echoed exactly what I was going to say, that we do not have the power to amend the law. Our job is to implement the law that has been passed. So as you said, if as a country we want to have a conversation about amending the SNIT law, then conversation and trigger the processes that lead to the amendment of the law. But our point, and I wasn't getting overly legalistic, I was just making a reference to the law that governs the scheme, that this is the law and we are merely implementers of the law. And until that situation changes, we can only implement what the law says. But as your resource person said, if we have a conversation and we feel that this is the way to go, and there's a subsequent amendment, our job really, like I said, is to lay down the law and implement it. As you said, am I open to it? I do not have the power, you said, to amend the law on my own, to take a decision, or the managers of SNIT to take a decision to say that because of this, we are going to do this. And if it's not grounded in the law, that will constitute an illegality. And so, as your resource person says, if we have this conversation and that's where we move to, then we can only implement the law at this stage. But SNIT as an entity cannot, as we speak, add or deduct the current law as it is, pending an amendment or a change.
Are you willing to initiate the move, or you're looking to central government to begin talks around this?
There are clearly laid down procedures for amending a law. And I think we all know those processes. And so once those processes are triggered and it goes all the way to Parliament, and if Parliament were so minded to change or amend the law, then our job really is just to implement it. And so I think that maybe it's a conversation as Mr. Game says to have. But the point I was making is, as we speak, we can only implement at 766. And I don't think anybody is suggesting that we go contrary to what the law says as we speak. If in future this situation changes and the law says, for instance, you have to make payments for unemployment, then of course that's what the law says, and then we will.
Then you can begin to look at that. Madam Sarkodie, thank you very much for your time here on NewsDesk. I really appreciate this interview granted us. Mr. Game, your final words as we wrap up on this.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be SNIT initiating the move. This is something that organized labor, employers, and government at a National Tripartite Committee meeting, coming under Section 113 of the Labour Act, I believe Section C, to discuss intensely about this issue. I told you I've made it to people on this issue long ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about giving unemployment pay. No, it's a special purpose pay that must be done. You know, and if they can come under that, they can discuss that in the economic front to enable that aspect of the law to be amended to help cushion people, to give support to people in this perplexity time. That's about it.
Thank you for joining us on NewsDesk. That's Austin Game. He is a labor expert or consultant, and he joined us with his views on the former president's suggestion for SNIT to move in to help contributors around this time. Let's do some other stories now. Police in the Western region is investigating a case of illegal fishing that turned fatal. A fisherman in Akwida near Diskov has lost his hand and suffered severe injuries, and which requires plastic surgery. Now, the twist to the story is that while the victim is insisting he was attacked by a shark while on fishing expedition, health experts at Ifiakwanta Regional Hospital say the signs on his body tell a different story.
Akwida is a fishing community near Disco in the Ahanta West district of the Western region. Isaac Edu set out on a fishing expedition. But as our sources tell us, Mr. Edu employed illegal means to fish.
On Tuesday, 3rd March, I decided to go fishing and fend for the family. I went with 2 others. We were carrying our fishing gear while the outboard motor was at the rear of the canoe. When we got a catch, we came together to pull the net. While we're doing so, a big fish hit the canoe, so I jumped into the water to get it since I thought it was dead. A shark attacked me in the process. I was lucky I could swim. My brothers eventually rescued me.
Blast fishing or dynamite fishing is the practice of using explosives to stun or kill schools of fish for easy collection. This often illegal practice can be extremely destructive to the surrounding ecosystem, as the explosion often destroys the underlying habitat.
Now, the Western Region Director of Fisheries, Godfrey Tibu, joins me via phone for the latest on this development. Can you confirm that you have received a report on this incident, sir?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so we understand that you have received a report on this incident which we reported. Can you confirm that for us?
Yeah, we have received it in the Takoradi Fisheries Office about some few weeks, 3 weeks now. Yes. But the report said it was dynamite fishing. The report also referred to 2 incidents. One on the 16th of February, in which somebody is alleged to have died. And then this particular one in which Mr. Idu is injured. So we are aware of this incident.
In the case of the injury, can you tell us more on that? That is what we have reported, the case of the gentleman who sustained injuries on his body.
Yeah. In your earlier report, he was talking about being attacked by a shark. The report I had also mentioned that shark was mentioned when they went to the police, and in your earlier report, the doctor was refuting that it could be shark. But as far as my office is concerned, we have not received any such report that sharks are attacking people in that area. What we know, as far as fisheries is concerned, is that dynamite, being an illegal method of fishing, is used in some parts of this region. And what I remember is that last year we had reports on that, even from national security, and that got us to meet with some chief fishermen to have a discussion on it. That meeting was also done with the police. Dynamite is a dangerous, substance, because as you said, it's explosive. It can kill, it can maim.
Yes, so we know that dynamite is very dangerous, but are you able to tell us how the fishermen and the people in the community have access to such a powerful,
Yeah, that is where the problem is, because nobody would show that this is dynamite, I have dynamite in my house or whatever. But from that meeting I'm referring to, it was with the police, and it was at the instance of national security, which means that we want to know where the source is. What we learned from the fishermen was that the women who go to sell fish, smoked fish, in the hinterland, in Western region we have some mining areas, and these explosives are used in the mining areas for blasting and things like that. So when the women are returning, that is what they told us, they are able to get some dynamite and put into their baskets and bring back to the fishermen to use to fish. You see, in my office, we also have the Fisheries Enforcement Unit, and their duty is to, check illegal fishing.
In the case of this gentleman, have you established a prima facie case against him? Is there cause to process him for court to face the law?
Yeah, I think it was in a report that the case is under police investigation. Yes, it is under police investigation because that is what we suspect. We suspect that it is dynamite and it's not shark. And the issue about shark needs to be looked at very critically, because when we say there is a shark attack, it's a very serious thing.
Yeah.
That means that some parts of the waters are dangerous, because sharks are very ferocious creatures.
And you're saying that you have not received reports of sharks attacking
we haven't received any report
fishermen.
And if you go to
shark
data, shark attack data, there's a website which gathers such information around the world. Ghana, we have not had, there is a report from 1900 up to date, 2020. There has not been any shark attack in Ghana.
Well, that is interesting. Mr. Tibu, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsdesk, and we'll be following this very closely to see how this pans out. And let's do some other stories now on Newsdesk. Persons found to... Two persons who have been treated for COVID-19 at the University of Ghana Medical Center have been sharing their stories of trauma and anxiety as they dread being stigmatized after recovery. Now, there have been several reports from parts of the country with some people still doubting the existence of the virus in Ghana. JoyNews obtained exclusive access to the UGMC Treatment Center for persons infected with the virus. They are warning people to be cautious and stay at home as government continues to battle the disease.
Psychologically, it's been very scary. It is scary. I mean, you have all the symptoms, and obviously you'll be very scared. You can't sleep at night, you're sleepless, you're restless. It's pretty hard. You don't know what can happen to you the next day. So it's very dangerous illness. I won't wish it for anybody.
One of two persons being treated for COVID-19 I have met here. It's been 21 days since Akai, not her real name, tested positive. She tells me she was brought here only days ago.
For me, by the time that the sample test came in where I was positive, I had already been self-isolating in my house. So I had all the resources to keep myself from infecting others. And I kept to myself and at home. They served me outside my door and everything. So nobody was actually affected. However, when it got serious a couple of days ago, because I actually wasn't breathing properly, so I had to come in so that they can monitor me properly with oxygen and so on, support. And so that's how. But psychologically, it's actually not been easy up till now.
Long before her test results were ready, she feared she may have contracted the disease.
I was a bit too curious. I think I already figured out that I had it, considering the symptoms. I actually got the symptoms from day one. So I got the terrible headache, I got the fever, I got lots of smell and taste. I got almost everything except the sore throat, and then the shortness of breath. Anyway, so it was kind of like the sample test just confirmed my fears. Yeah.
You speak about the fact that you suspected because of all the symptoms you had got at the time. So at what point were you tested?
I was from the time I got the symptoms, I was tested about 4 days during the symptoms. So I got the headaches for about 2-3 days, and then on the 4th day I got the fever, and that's when I realized that, and I got the runny nose and the blocked nose actually. So that's when I realized that I had to call it in. So when they sampled, a sample came in about a couple of days after, but I was already doing my own treatments, in-house remedies and all that. So that was what helped me, get better at least.
The past days for her have been exhausting, but with support from health workers at the University of Ghana Medical Center, she is getting by. But her greatest fear right now is how to avoid being stigmatized by community folk after her recovery.
I am scared. If I leave here and I'm actually recovered, I don't know what I'm going to face outside, how people will perceive me in my neighborhood, especially among my friends. But the thing is that I think that it's best that you don't tell people. I mean, the less people know about it, the better, even though you wish you would have told them to help them, stay safe. But at the end of the day, the stigmatization in this country is serious. You wouldn't want to go through that. So for now, we're just keeping our fingers crossed.
How are you doing?
I'm doing better.
I meet another person I'll choose to call Polo, who has been here for 5 days.
This virus is seriously very serious. We can't take it very lightly. As I'm here for past 1 week now. I was suffering a breathlessness, but because of the doctor's team over here and the staff management, I'm getting better over here.
He hoped at the time of a test that the results would be negative.
At the time when they taken the sample, I was free that the test will be negative. But when the test came, it was a positive test. It will feel like it will give you a sudden attack that how can it be a positive.
I believe that you are being taken through the treatment and everything is going well.
Yeah, sure, everything is going well and we are under the treatment and we are getting better.
Did you present with any of the symptoms that we are learning, the, dry cough, dizziness, all those other things?
At that point, I wasn't having any symptoms. When the test was taken, I wasn't having any symptoms. But later on, after the result came, I was quarantined for 4 days. But after that, I realized that I'm getting breathless.
Polo and Akai are upbeat and hopeful of pulling through, but they have a message to those who still somehow believe coronavirus is a hoax.
I'm an example. In total, it's been about 21 days since I had this illness. So you can just imagine the trauma I've already faced. So if you're telling me to stay home, practice safe distancing, and you're not doing it, then you have a long way to go. It's dangerous. Keep yourself out of harm's way. Wash your hands as much as possible. Wear your face masks and all that. Just be safe out there. It's a very dangerous illness. I won't wish it for anybody.
In all, 26 persons were brought to this facility, out of which 18 have recovered and been discharged. Chief Executive Officer of the center, Dr. Darius Osei, assures the facility has the capacity to manage patients while health workers remain committed to helping combat the disease.
We are actually following the protocol of protecting ourselves. And I'm sure it is going to become one of the normal conditions that we manage if we follow the protocols and protecting ourselves well. So we've tried to demystify the myth that comes around it. And I hope that the stigma will also gradually go away, and then we will all begin to think that it is one of the normal things that come in our lives. And so far as we prepare ourselves as providers, we should be able to stand the test of time. And so far, I will congratulate my staff. They have done very well, and we hope to continue.
And that's an exclusive access we got to the University of Ghana Medical Center. Let's stay on health. You know that the National Health Insurance Scheme made a donation to the COVID fund, and since then there's been an outpour of reaction, especially from the subscribers of NHIS. Now, the Private Health Association are particularly unhappy with the donation made by the NHIS. We've been joined in the studio by the General Secretary of the group, and that is Frank Toblu, for some more on this. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsdesk. You are not happy that the NHIS is making a donation to the fund that will help fight this pandemic we are all faced with. Why is that?
Let me put the issue into real perspective. It isn't that we are not happy with the donations that they have made to the fund. We have the view that, yes, when you make reference to at 852 section 40 2C and D, it is stated categorically clear that the NHIA has the capacity, it has the mandate to do what is called corporate social responsibility. They have that right, without any reservation. Again, we are also privy to the allocation formula that Parliament approved to the National Health Insurance Authority early this year, which allocated almost 4.9 million Ghana cedis to them in respect of corporate social responsibility. So, looking at this section of the law, vis-a-vis parliamentary allocation or parliament approval of such funds to them, of course they have that right to do what they have done.
Yes, and they have explained that. So what is your concern?
Yes, we are now coming to the substance. We have something we call substance over form in law. Here we are, we have a very challenging situation at hand. We have made series of requests to government to give us PPEs, because the fight against this corona disease is not one-sided. It's supposed to be double-sided. Double-sided in the sense that once you are supporting the government institutions to fight the corona, we equally looking at the private sector, because people choose between the private and the public as to where they should go for their medical conditions.
Yeah, that is
so in a situation where somebody with the COVID cases move to the private sector, and the private sector is not well equipped to handle the situation, guess what is going to happen? Let me give you a typical example that happened in South Africa. Somebody with COVID case went to a facility. By the time they finished with him at the hospital, 65 people were contracted the disease. I mean, that is the situation we have at hand. So it means that they were not properly equipped. They were not well protected, and that is the situation they find themselves in. And that hospital had to be closed down.
So you're saying that since the pandemic, since the case was recorded in Ghana, you've not received any form of support from government as far as the provision of PPEs is concerned?
Sincerely, I am waiting for government to say that we have given to hospital A or hospital B. As I'm speaking to you, if it is done, I think it's about 10:30 now. If it is done 10:29, that means it is done. But as I speak to you, none of us in the private sector, as far as our organization is concerned, received one, unless otherwise they can mention to me that we have given to hospital A, hospital B, or hospital C.
So your case is that you do not find the donation by the NHIS unlawful or illegal, but you think it is inappropriate considering what you are faced with as we speak?
Sincerely, it is not illegal. It is not unlawful. They are operating within the remit of the law. But you see, as I stated earlier on, you cannot have a situation where those who are taking care of the COVID cases are not having the necessary logistics to take care of the people, and then you are going to give to the, in quote, vulnerable in society to protect themselves. Of course, we are not against protective health. Of course, I must say that we are not against protective health. It is equally important.
If this is your case, then your call should not be to the NHIS. You should be looking at the Ministry of Health or the Ghana Health Service, who have some oversight as far as your work is concerned as private healthcare providers to support you in this cause.
You made a point. If government has given money to our immediate financiers, which is the NHIA, to pay us, and then the immediate financier, knowing the situation we find ourselves in, decide to return that money in another form to government, what justification do we have to be lambasting government that you have not given us money? Are you getting the argument? Yeah. So it's just a clear calculation that you have to look through.
What are you going to do from here?
You see, we are still insisting. You see, where we find ourselves, there is no need to put down any stringent measure that if we don't do this, we will do this. But the truth of the matter is that we are going to impress upon government to give us PPEs. Because if we say we are not going to look after the people, what happens after the COVID-19? Are we going to see these same people who we will be turning away? The answer is obviously no. We will surely have to receive them, handle them, because they continue to remain our patients. There is one important thing we need to understand.
Yes, we need to wrap up on this.
Yes, whether health insurance or not, people continue to go to hospital. May God forbid, assuming NHI is no more today, doesn't mean people will not go to hospital. They will surely go to hospital.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank Toblu. He is the General Secretary of the Private Health Association, the Hospitals Association. They have some concerns with the donation made by the NHIS, and they're calling on government to support them during this pandemic. We're taking a break here on Newsdesk. When we return, we'll bring you business. But the Ghana Exim Bank has announced support for clothing manufacturing firms to produce PPEs during this emergency.
Thank you, my brother.
Details after the break. Now, as demand for personal protective equipment increases amid the spread of coronavirus in Ghana, the Ghana Export-Import Bank has provided funding to manufacturing firms to produce more. This is under the Exim Bank's COVID-19 funding project. Charles Aite reports.
Local government manufacturing companies are racing to meet demand for personal protective gears. Here at the production line of Candlin Fashion, these workers, numbering 300, are on a morning and night shift system, turning tons of plain material to nose masks, protective gowns and hand gloves. Linda Ampa is the chief executive of the company.
We were about 145, 150 thereabouts. So we had to increase our capacity to be able to meet the demand so that the President can meet the targets set for the nation.
Having benefited from a funding program under the Exim Bank, this garment factory is part of 7 other companies innovating with a thread and needle to keep Ghana's general public, including frontline health workers, against the novel coronavirus. Paying a factory visit to the production line, Chief Executive of Ghana Exim Bank, Lawrence Ajinsam, encouraged other government firms to apply for financial assistance.
Go beyond aid. Today we have a local industry that is producing to be able to support us. That is meeting both the FDA standard and the WTO standard. We are proud to associate ourselves with Candlin, that she is doing this yeoman's job. On behalf of the board and management, we will continue to support. But this is a demonstration of what Ghanaians' ability and capability can do. Time has come for us to look local and not international. We therefore plead that the garment industry, as you saw, has a lot of people that they can employ. So for those who are already in the industry, we want to assure them